Okay, so this is Shannon and Shae here, about to break down the Gita. We are brand new readers of this, or I'll say I am. Shae's had this for a little bit of time, a lot more than I have. And we are here with you today to just react to it. Quite honestly, this already, I'm 2 weeks in, and already this is starting to change my life. Definitely changing my vibration. So, what we wanted to do is just spend some time breaking down the Gita and just like what's in it, just from a total lay person's perspective, because I do feel it's one of those things. If it's an inspired divine scripture, the divine song, the divine consciousness, we're calling it, right? This beautiful piece of poetry, literature, it can mean all things to all of us, different things to all of us, just in the same way a person can read something or see something and connect to it in a particular personal way that moves them, that maybe not for somebody else if they see or hear it differently. So we just want to reflect and react to what we're experiencing and somewhat put it on the record, even for ourselves to watch back later and listen to our own self as we see ourselves take this beautiful piece of divine inspiration into our lives. So Shae has just read a little bit out of her commentary. And as the Gita opens up, we already talked about in our last episode. So please check out our last episode where we actually just are like, what is this? But we decided we would get into it chapter by chapter and just start going through it and seeing what is in this thing. So please join us. If you have a copy of the Gita, if you're just interested in this, I personally have this Franklin Edgerton edition from originally 1944. We do notice there's different versions, a little bit different of commentary. So follow along. Shae, what do you have?
Yeah, I have the Bhagavad Gita by Eknath Easwaran, and this version was translated in 2007. So even between the two of our copies, we notice a big difference in just how the language is used. So yeah, really welcome to our study session. That's what I'm so excited about. It's so nice to have just like-minded people together learning and studying this. So thank you for being here with me.
Absolutely. So again, as this story opens, we kind of just wanted to set the scene. If you haven't read this and you're not sure what's in it, and Shae already talked about really what it is. We're at the scene of a battle here. So I'm just going to read a little bit out of my chapter 1 commentary here. It says, in its form, it consists mainly of a long dialogue, which is almost a monologue. The principal speaker is Krishna, who in his human aspect is merely one of the secondary heroes of the Mahabharata, a great Hindu epic. But according to the Gita itself, he is in truth a manifestation of the supreme deity in human form. Hence the name, the song, Gita, and the blessed one, or the Lord, Bhagavad. And the other speaker is Arjuna, it says. So this is really a conversation that goes down between them. There's a great battle that's about to ensue. And essentially, if I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, Shae, essentially, Krishna being a kind of a neutral party, being a divine god, basically, the divine god has these two kings, or not two kings necessarily, these two armies go to him, and he ends up giving one his armies, and then himself gets to be the advisor for the other party, which is Arjuna. Help me explain that a little bit better, Shae.
Honestly, I'm not so sure about whether or not I mean, I know he's a neutral party, but he's the charioteer of Arjuna. So
So he's Arjuna's friend. Okay,
he's
got
Arjuna's
it.
friend, he's his charioteer. He's the one who's literally driving his chariot, which is cool because that's an analogy in itself, right? That the all supreme Lord is the one driving your chariot, is the one that's guiding you. So yeah, Krishna has come, and Arjuna doesn't even know Krishna is the all supreme at this point in chapter 1. And so really this is just his friend that he's known who has been driving his chariot all this time. So he just happens to be the one that is with Arjuna when they come to the field because he's driving his chariot. And so he just gets to be the one who's Arjuna breaks down to. Hey, how am I supposed to do that? And we'll get into that. But yeah.
Okay, wow, amazing. Okay, I think I get it now. So this is his charioteer. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that so much. What you said about like how the secretly the divine Lord is the chariot driver of our life, and that's so true. And it reminds me something of later, which comes up about basically the forces that act upon us. One of which is the divine energy, one of which is the universe, basically driving us forward. And I feel like that's somehow a little bit that force we all feel when we're pushed forward uncomfortably into something, and we're like, what is that? What is that feeling? What is that force? What is that that's making me feel like I have to do or be something or pushing me towards something? And that's really what it is. It's that divine chariot underneath us all, the divine energy underneath all of us. I love that so much. Okay, so that's who Krishna is up to that point in the story. So that's why my book says he's like up to this point a minor character in the Mahabharata, which is a larger story.
Yeah. We'll find that so much of the Gita is an allegory or it is a metaphor for something different. And even they open up the chapter talking about this is the battlefield of Dharma, which we talked about Dharma in the last video, and broke that down a little bit. But it's basically your purpose here on earth. So exactly what you're saying about that underlying force, that chariot that's driving us forward, is also that Dharma, that's our purpose, that's pushing us forward. So that's another way that the Gita opens up as an allegory for something bigger than itself. And I just want to read a bit of my commentary here that says, Chapter 1 leaves us acutely aware that we are on a battlefield waiting for a catastrophic war to begin. But once Krishna begins his instruction, we leave the battlefield behind and enter the realms of philosophy and mystical vision. The first chapter is but a bridge to the real subjects of the Gita, and thus need not detain us too long in our study of the poem. So if you have a copy of the Gita, you'll find that the first beginning of the chapter 1 is Sanjaya, who is the seer for the blind king, Dhritarashtra. I know that.
I think it's Dhritarashtra. We're probably saying this bad. We're gonna need to look it up. I think it's Dhritarashtra.
Yeah, you sound like you're saying it better than I am. But you'll see that the first beginning of the chapter is Sanjaya explaining to the blind king exactly what's happening on the battlefield and who's there. And who's there is the people that Arjuna loves. It's his bow teacher, it's his friends, his family, his uncles, his cousins that are all on the other side of the battlefield. These are the people that he is supposed to be fighting. And so I think we wanted to pick up right on verse 28?
Well, I have a thought about just even that. Okay, just even that, because actually that makes sense. Because when I heard it, I didn't read it first. I heard it first, and they were naming off all these beautiful names, they're just beautiful in nature, and I just was like obsessed with it. And I remember I texted you, and I was like, they have names for their conch shells, like they have names for their bows and their weapons. I was like, what is this? It's like so beautiful, but that utterly makes sense now that it's actually a description for a blind king. And that's totally why he's saying this person is holding this weapon and this person is here, and he's naming them. Ah, okay. But then I say to myself, wait a second, because every single thing in here means something. So even though they're saying don't linger on that, but wait a second, like the universe knows every one of us, every bit of us, and like sees every one of us down there. There's Shae with her, you know, yoga mat or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like in some ways,
the blanket night.
yes, like in some ways, I actually love that there is time spent on this, calling out everybody there. And in a lot of ways, Arjuna's reaction to what he's seeing, I don't think would be quite the same impact if we didn't have all these names. And it kind of personalizes it in a way, right? Because this is what he's saying. This is my grandfather. There's my uncle. There's my teacher. And all of us are different roles in life. All of us are those people at times. Maybe we've been those people in other bodies in other lifetimes, but it's actually, I sort of feel like he's calling out all of us in our different roles. Who are we? When you're the guru, when you're the teacher, when you're the father, when you're the mother. No, actually, there's no female characters in the battle scene, but and we're going to get to that, and we'll definitely talk about that. But like, to me, it's genderless in that sense, in this part.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for just making that comment, because it's so true. Even when we were the conch shell, when we were the actual bow and arrow, all of that, and And they make it a point to make these things personal. I mean, his bow is called Govinda. Is that true? Now I'm like trying to look for it. It doesn't really matter, but I mean, it does matter. But the fact that they took the time to actually name the things, that's so true. I
I
remember,
love. And if everything is ever energy, then everything has a bit of divine nature in it, even the weapons they're using. And isn't that true of what are the weapons we use in life to deal with life? These are our weapons. We call them our brain, we call them our heart, we call them our intuition, we call them our willpower. These are the names of our weapons. So I love that we call them that. And it's important what we call those things to ourselves, even more so as our words or spells and create our life. So let's say we call our willpower something that disempowers us. That makes a difference. So I love these beautiful names. And I wish I knew more about this language so I could tell. I'm guessing that there's meanings in every one of those names, deep meanings, I'm guessing.
yeah, if you're a Sanskrit scholar out there listening to this, feel free to DM us. Come on over and help us out with just pronunciation in general, but also just explaining a little bit of the Sanskrit. That would be great. Okay. Well, actually,
Amazing.
I want to back it up. I know we were going to start at 28, but I want to kind of back it up to verse 21. So chapter 1, verse 21. And this is Arjuna just I'm just going to read it. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Arjuna says, "O Krishna, drive my chariot between the two armies. I want to see those who desire to fight with me. With whom will this battle be fought? I want to see those assembled to fight for Duryodhana, those who seek to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra by engaging in war." So here he is making a clear distinction between he's not wanting to fight this war, and it's the other side that's wanting to fight him.
This what he means by the evil-minded, because in my says it says, yeah, the Dhritarashtra's ill-minded son, eager to do service in battle. So he's being attacked. So do you know more about this section of what's happening here? Is he fighting a battle because is he on the defense? Arjuna's side is on the defense.
I know that Arjuna is fighting the battle to protect his brother. His brother is supposed to be on the throne right now, and it's Dhritarashtra. Correctly,
It's the Pandavas on one side, right?
yes.
And that's Arjuna's side is the Pandavas, correct?
Say that
And
again.
as far as I remember, there was 5 Pandava sons so there's like a king, the 5 sons of Pandava, and they are like, hey, like, go ahead, you can have the kingdom, just leave us our 5 villages, just leave us, we'll stay out of it. And still the battle comes to them anyway. They're like, no, Dhritarashtra's sons or his side is like, no, we want everything.
Yeah.
Which is, again, such an allegory. Okay. It's such an allegory. All right. Because it's like, in some ways, it almost puts the sons of Pandava. Am I saying that right?
Pandava, yes. And this is
Yeah.
Arjuna's side.
Arjuna's side. Okay. In some ways, it puts them on that defense side of like, if this is a allegory of our subconscious or our consciousness or something, it's like almost the battle of life where we are, I don't want to say the victims thereof, but like in some ways, like um we're subject to the behaviors and the whims and the energies of what's outside of our control.
Yeah.
I guess is what I'm struggling to say here, which seems like is somewhat represented by this thought, this idea of the the evil side or the ill-mannered side or whatever. Because I feel like later Krishna starts to explain that that's just kind of like perception.
Yeah.
It's like, so like in my self view, my ego says, this is like that idea of the world is against me.
Yeah.
And that's my ego basically saying the world, I'm separate and the world is against me. And look at this army's against me, the army of life, like all these energies are coming at me. Now I feel like that's sort of where Arjuna is like, wait a second.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect way of saying it. And we'll hear Krishna's response in chapter 2 to Arjuna. And I think that you're spot on by saying that he is playing victim right now. He's like, why is this happening to me? Why is this coming to me? They're evil. They're coming over here to me. And haven't we all felt like that? Haven't we all felt like that in one way or another in some type of situation that we are the victim in this situation? when really, no, there is no separation, and we are all just one, and their energy is your energy. So what's going on there?
I'm curious, is there other in later Hindu scripture, is the other side described?
I
Like the
believe,
other perspective described? I'm
I,
curious.
I
If
think,
anyone knows that, please help us understand that. I'm just curious, maybe not, but like,
I
so,
think
you
they
know,
are
there is like all sides of things. So there are definitely times where we feel victimized, completely victimized, and we feel utterly justified in that victimization. And we cannot see in any way, shape, or form how this is not our fault or anything. Okay. And like, that could be true at times, but like, there's definitely other times where wait, there's another whole side to this thing that I don't see. There's a higher perspective, a different perspective. And I don't mean to be like saying fault or not fault. I'm just saying like there's different perspectives of things. So I'm curious about that. But yeah, right here, Arjuna is like basically like looking at this situation and seems to be despondent. So yeah, it goes on basically in 28. If I could just jump to verse 28 real.
one more second, I want to add something that you were just saying about, um, I think the metaphor for the blind king himself is such an important metaphor as well, because he's being blinded by this greed. And I think that just adds on to what you were just saying. So yeah, I just
Okay, and explain who the blind king is a little bit more for me. Why are you even saying that? I'm not even sure why. Yeah, break that down a little. Who is the blind king?
so the blind king is Arjuna's uncle, who I'm pretty sure, and if you're out there in your lease, this is all based on just what I've seen, heard, read, and this is how I'm explaining it in my head. Blind King is Arjuna's uncle. Arjuna's father dies, I want to say, and his brother is supposed to rise up, but his brother is young, and so the Blind King continues on, right? And then the Blind King gets a power differential there, and he's overcome by greed. He wants to take it all over. He wants all the power himself. And so I think it's important to note, like, the blindness of the king is for a reason as well. He's being blinded by the power, by the greed of wanting the entire nation to be his, instead of, sharing with his own family.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree. I really like that. Are we the blind king?
Yeah, at times, yes. At times, and that's the whole point of the Gita, I think. At times we are everybody in the Gita. You know, sometimes we're the seer, sometimes we're Sanjaya, and we're the one who's explaining it to everybody else what's going on at the battlefield. Sometimes we're the one who's blinded by the greed, blinded by the power, blinded by whatever. Sometimes we're Arjuna in the first chapter being the victim and just saying, oh, why, woe is life. And sometimes we're Krishna coming in with the hard answers and being that guide for people.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I really love that. It really just, puts it sort of in a such a personal, again, as we talked about them naming everybody, where it's like puts us in that personal kind of aspect. I feel like we can each really empathize and put ourselves in each of those spots at different times of our life. When we've needed those things, when we've been all of those different roles, we've all done it. So we can all really relate in many ways in what this battlefield that we all go through. We all exist in those same kind of states. Although our experience, singular experience, is totally different for each one of us. These are absolutely universal principles that are being talked about here. Amazing.
And it just makes me laugh, because I just think about times in my life, right, where a friend has come and picked me up in their car, and there I am, woe is life, in the passenger seat. And just imagine if the person who came to pick you up was actually the all supreme, all knowing Krishna. And that is what's happening with Arjuna here. He just so happens to be his driver, who just happens to overhear all of this happening. And of course, whoever's driving you, this happens to me quite often. Sometimes I'll just be speaking out loud, and it's like whoever is in my vicinity is just subject to hearing my commentary. And so that is what's happening here. I think that's so beautiful too, is that you can find the divine in your very best friend, in the person who's driving your car, in the person who's, walking down the street next to you. It's like anybody who can hear you could be that all supreme. Who knows?
I love that so much. And I literally just saw some scenes from the Matrix when like the Oracle like goes in and actually like the art, like the Mr. Smith even as he like beams into the body or whatever and it like takes over that character for a second. It's like that, like suddenly, and I know you and I have both felt that way. And like as a person who really has been a spiritual medium and has been able to divinely channel energy like that, that I know it's not me. I literally know it's not me. What I'm saying is coming through and it's just an opening. I've definitely felt that divine energy coming through, and I've 100% been the receiver thereof, where I haven't been able to reach that, and I haven't, and it's had to come from somewhere else, and the universe has sent it to me else from elsewhere, and it's up to me whether or not I see it or decide to understand it. And I think that's where, at first in this first chapter, Arjuna struggles. He's struggling.
Yeah.
We've all been on the struggle bus. Every one of us has been there like, what is happening and why? I don't like this. It's kind of what I sort of get from him. He's like, I just don't like this.
Yep.
And can I go to 28 now? He says, filled with the utmost compassion, despondent, spoke these words, seeing my own kinsfolk here, Krishna, that I've drawn near, eager to fight, my limbs sink down, my mouth becomes parched, and there's trembling in my body. My hair stands on end. The bow, Gandhava, oh, that's his bow, Gandhava, falls from my hand, and my skin too is burning, and I can't stand still. My mind seems to wander, and I see portents there are adverse. I foresee no welfare, having slain my kinsfolk in battle. I wish no victory, Krishna. And he goes on to that. Basically, he starts talking about how, if, what am I going to get from this battle? I will, if I win, I'm going to slay all these people that I love. And then what is life about? Is life worth living now? Basically, that I've slain these people that I love. So, I mean, if we're going with the allegory on that, let's talk about that, Shae.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that this is so personal to each one of us. So if you are listening to this or if you're reading this, I encourage you to draw your own parallels between your life and what is being said in this book, because that is what makes the Gita so special, is that it can be so personalized and uniquely directed straight to you. But I mean, how many times I have felt like this in my life, having to do something and being like, I do not want to do this. Why am I doing this? What is the point of this? And he says here, even if they were to kill me, I would not want to kill them. Not even to become the ruler of the three worlds. How much less for the earth alone? Oh, Krishna, what satisfaction would we find in killing these people? We would become sinners by slaying these men, even though they are evil. And so,
therefore, we should not slay Dhritarashtra's men, our own kinfolk. For how, having slain our kinfolk, could we be happy? Yeah, I totally get this. And if we're making the allegory here, this is life. Okay. Is this somewhat, he's talking about attachment here a little bit. Okay. So somewhat he's like, okay, I'm really attached. I have an earthly attachment to all these people. And here's a circumstance thrust upon me that I don't want. And actually don't even want to deal with this. And so like, that doesn't actually stop the thing that's coming and happening though. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this thing. This is too much.
And you know what this makes me think of, honestly, in my own life? Times where I've had a job and I've enjoyed the job, but for some reason, like I can't do this job anymore for whatever, and I have to quit that job. And it's like, oh God, I don't want to quit the job. I don't want to have to go to the boss and quit the job, but I know that I have to do it. Like I know that it's coming regardless of, and that can just be any conflict in your life in general.
Right. So he's struggling with like, I'm about to lose something. It seems like I don't want to lose this thing and I'm about to lose it, like it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, could we even draw a distinction between someone we love, we're losing them through death, through a breakup, something like that? Okay, we're losing them. And it's a fear and nobody wants that. And everybody knows that grief and sadness inside. So nobody wants that. So it's almost like, dear Krishna, I'm about to lose this thing and I don't want to lose it. Please help me understand. How can I be happy after losing this thing? And this is one of the things that happens to all of us in life. We lose things in life, every last human one of us. And we think to ourselves, we can't go on without it, but that is not true. And Krishna does explain that is not true. You're not looking at this correct.
And what this really is describing is Arjuna's dark night of the soul. He's going
Ugh.
here. You know, what is the point of life? Why am I supposed to do this? Why is this happening to me? Why? And that's all, that's what he's asking really, is what is the purpose of all of this? And I mean, I felt that way in life, and I'm sure many other people have. And so you're about to get the direct guidance from Krishna in this next chapter of what you should really do. But we'll continue on in chapter 1. We're almost done. Should we just continue reading? We only have a couple more.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so now I'm in chapter 1, verse 38. And this is Arjuna still talking.
Yeah.
We are overpowered by greed and see no evil in destroying families or injuring friends. We see the evil. So he's talking about the other side. Though they're overpowered by greed, though they don't see any evil in this, we see the evils. Why shouldn't we turn away from this sin? When a family declines, ancient traditions are destroyed. With them are lost of spiritual foundations for life, and the family loses its sense of unity. Where there is no sense of unity, the women of the family become corrupt, and with the corruption of its women, society is plunged into chaos. Social chaos is hell for the family, and for those who have destroyed the family as well. It disrupts the process of spiritual evolution begun by our ancestors. The timeless spiritual foundations of family and society would be destroyed by these terrible deeds, which violate the unity of life. I think it's very interesting that he's going into the ancestral line here, because this is his family that he's fighting. And so now he's more, it sounds like he's concerned about just the integrity of his family in general, having gone through this battle. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that's a valid concern on his part, to be totally honest, right? Because even when we make it through these battles, we don't come through unscarred, unscathed, and neither has our ancestors. And we do bring that karma from them with us in the form of we are them. We were made by them, we were raised by them, energetically, physically, we are them in so many ways. We pick up their patterns, we are them, their memories. So yeah, I think that there's something here in that what he's saying. Now, again, when we think about, ourselves and our personal situations, when we're like, we don't, it's almost as if he's like, I don't see how this can possibly turn out good for me.
Yeah.
Don't see it. I can't see how I can, basically like possibly ruin not only myself, but like my whole family's gonna have the fallout from this thing. So it's super interesting how this is answered, and I definitely don't want to get ahead of it, but like to me, I really related to what he was saying here.
Yeah, I mean, we see, as you said, his concern for the karma of his future generations of his family. Shall I continue? I'm on verse 44 now. We're just about there at the end of chapter 2.
Yeah.
Chapter 1. It is said, this is Arjuna still talking. It is said that those whose family's dharma has been destroyed dwell in hell. This is a great sin. We are prepared to kill our own relations out of greed and for the pleasures of a kingdom. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to attack me in battle and kill me unarmed and unresisting. So that's the end of Arjuna's commentary, and then Sanjaya in verse 47 says, overwhelmed by sorrow, Arjuna spoke these words, and casting away his bow and his arrow, he sat down in his chariot in the middle of the battlefield. And so really we see him, I mean, he literally puts his bow and arrow down, says, I'd rather be killed than go out there and kill.
Right. Let me read my last verse, 47. Thus speaking, Arjuna in the battle sat down in the box of the car, letting fall his bow and arrows, his heart smitten with grief. Yeah, who hasn't been in that moment where you're just like, I give up.
F it. F it. Here,
This isn't gonna turn well for me. And you know what? I feel like there's some things that we face in life that like the aftermath is going to be significant. And it does feel overwhelming what he's facing here, whether it's you know, a subjective battle, whether it's, just symbolic, whatever it is. I do feel like this is the type of thing that brings us to our knees, right?
Yeah.
This is the place, this is the time we talk about the dark night, about, I'm finally like I've broken down to the last of my, what am I trying to say?
It's hitting rock bottom.
Rock bottom. That's what I'm searching for. Yeah, you're hitting rock bottom here, and you're like, forget it. I give it up. It's almost his state here where he almost gets into a surrender.
Yes. I
because
have,
then he does, as it goes on, he basically is like, please, please educate me, Krishna. And he does. So it's like, do we need to get to that state of absolutely despondency before we go to the universe with our pleas? I don't think we do. I definitely don't think we do, but I think sometimes it does take that to
yeah,
get us to do it.
I was about to say, I definitely think that is a certain path. And I know many people that on this spiritual path that I've met have have this story of hitting rock bottom before they were able to open their eyes to God, to the universe, to receive the answers that they needed. And I have written here in my own writing, like Arjuna becomes selfless here. He's no longer worried about himself. He's just worried about, and I also have, he's getting caught in that wheel of like, life and death, the wheel of karma, the wheels of dharma. He's not knowing where to go. He's caught up in that wheel right now.
I mean, Arjuna's a famous soldier, right? Like he's an archer or whatever, and he's like a famous like warrior, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So he's not unfamiliar with war. He's
No,
not unfamiliar with battle at all. I think what it is that he's used to battling what we term our enemies.
yeah,
Okay. So when we other someone and we're like, that's our enemy, and I'm justified to go against them, that's one thing. But like, hey, his like whole life turned around where it's like, oh, damn, my family's my enemy now. Am I my enemy? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what is this?
I love that.
That absolutely happens to us.
I love that you just said that because really our enemy too are just our brothers and sisters on the other side as well, right? And so the fact that the Gita made the other side be the family of this all supreme warrior just makes it. I mean, that's just brilliant in itself because really we are all one. And if it was other people on the other side of the battlefield, he wouldn't be having this crisis right now.
Right. Which is like, there are so many like layers to this thing. Unbelievable how we can peel even those bits apart. Right. In this part where your book said, don't even spend time on this, I feel like we could spend a year talking about this whole chapter just because there's so much there about the soul, the psyche. He's literally describing our inner psyches here, where he's breaking down. He's getting to that point of, what do I do? I don't know how to proceed. I don't know what to do. Please help me, universe. Please help me. And he gets his answer, which is like, again, mind blowing. And we'll definitely get to that. I'm super excited to talk about that. But like at the same time, I do also think everything comes when we need to hear it and know it. And this is part of why we're picking our way so slowly through this thing, because if we don't, we're going to miss these little beautiful nuggets of spirituality and like these personal kind of revelations coming to each of us separately, even as just like I'm going along, just having my mind blown over and over. Like, what is this thing?
Just as they're coming to Arjuna in the exact moment he needs it on the battlefield. And that's why Arjuna represents us, represents you, me, the everyman. It's such a beautiful metaphor for the everyday person. And it's just the setting happens to be a battlefield, and in my commentary, it says that this first chapter can feel controversial just based on the fact that the setting is a battlefield, and are we promoting war here? But I encourage the readers, the listeners of this podcast, to just take it a step deeper than that, and just to recognize that this is the war within. This isn't actually going out and slaying your best friends and your uncles and your cousins. No, this is about that battle that is happening inside that we see Arjuna is contemplating right here, right now.
And I want to call out a part of it that I personally at first did not understand and somewhat struggled with, and still don't necessarily understand, but like something occurs to me when he talks about when the family breaks down, the women break down, and thus breaks down the family, right? The women are corrupted, basically. And I say to myself, is he talking about the divine feminine here inside of himself? Is that what actually breaks down? And he's not actually talking about women, right? He's talking about the divine feminine breaking down inside himself, which is the compassion and the heart and the love, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's that part of us that actually the compassion, and not that men don't have that, but the divine masculine energy is of willpower. It's the fire, it's the motivation to move forward. So if the inside, the divine feminine starts to break down inside any one of us, we are unbalanced and we are utterly as he said, the family starts to degrade, our bodies start to degrade, who we are inside of us start to degrade, because we are meant to have both of those energies full and intact inside of us. Wow. Thank you for that little insight, universe. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Because you know what? I was questioning about that part too, and I'm so glad that you kind of backed up and said that, because I think you're exactly right. I think that you're so right. And like you said in the very beginning, I like to see this book as genderless. And so for him to say that about the females, I just think you're spot on with that interpretation. I would love to hear what other people have to think about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, as I've been looking through this and reading this, we had, and we've said this to each other kind of privately, like this does seem to be the male view that we're getting here. This is men in the army. This is men speaking. You often hear this talked about by men. Not that it can't be or shouldn't be, and I don't mean to suggest that it shouldn't be in any way, but I do think if we can look at it a little more symbolically and just understand that maybe this is the divine masculine part of our side, questioning all of that stuff, how we go about the battle in that side of ourself is different than how our battle exists as the divine feminine. How we battle that, I personally battle that with healing and love. And it's a different type of battle that I go about in my divine masculine when I'm trying to get something done or do something or I want something.
Yeah.
So I think even if this is coming from that more divine masculine mindset, it's still 100% applies obviously to anyone, to all of us, to whatever levels of gender you have within inside of yourself. I don't think it matters. I do think that we can decide to hear and feel this beautiful divine energy, this beautiful divine poem in the way that we need to hear it. And I guess that's just what I'm feeling about that.
And I just love that he does touch on that. And you know, that is a part that I've overlooked every time I read it until you just said that. And I love that they did bring that feminine energy into here, and just reminding that when one is unbalanced, the other is unbalanced. You both must be both must have balance. So wow, thank you for that.
So I want to we're getting kind of to the end of the chapter, and I just want to sort of sum up. We've said so many things, so many lessons. I definitely can't capture everything we've said here. But I guess one of the overall things I get out of this, it's like making sure we have the setting of this thing we're about to read. It's like the setting of our life. I just am really reading this as like the battlefield of life, as we've been saying, but every character, every word, every person, every perspective is going to show us or teach us something. And I'm so excited to see how this really plays out because of how much depth there is in everything, down from how do I name my weapons to like what brings me to my knees. So don't skip this chapter, friends. Do not. It is good. There's like beauty in this thing.
Absolutely. And we would love to hear your commentary about the chapter. If you have some type of insight, or if you have interpreted something a little bit differently, or have some more knowledge than we do about this, please share in the comments. Send us a DM on Instagram. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us this week for chapter 1. We really appreciate it. We would really appreciate anybody subscribing or liking. This really means a lot to us, honestly, because this discussion we're having, we want to have it with other people. We need your voices. We need your opinions. We need to hear what you think about this, because we are the collective, and that's just part of it. So please enjoy our discussion in the meantime, and please come back next week. We're posting on Sundays, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can find us on Apple Podcast. You can find us on Instagram. Where else, Shae?
You can find us on Spotify as well. And yeah, stay tuned for chapter 2. Chapter 2, I think we'll probably go through a little bit slower than we did chapter 1, because there are so many golden nuggets. And I am just so excited to continue this study with you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, friends. See you next time.